The Ancients Were Mighty, Chapter 1 Geoarcheology, Signs of a Globally Active Ancient Civilization. Enigmatic Peru and Egypt. There are thousands of megalithic sites around the globe that show characteristics that point to a similar style of construction. But to set the tone, I shall start with the compelling similarities between the two most enigmatic places on the planet. I am talking about the megalithic structures of Peru and Egypt. These will be compared. Two places that, according to conventional archaeology and history, have nothing to do with each other. First, I will give you an introduction of our megalithic objects of inquiry. For this analysis, we shall look at 7 megalithic places. 3 of them are to be found in Peru, 4 of them in Egypt. In Peru, we find the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman, terraces built with walls made of cyclopean andesite blocks. These blocks weigh tens and even hundreds of tons. This huge complex has a volume of stone that is over 6,000 cubic meters. The walls are hundreds of meters long. It is built at a high altitude, 3,700 meters above sea level. Second, we have the Sun Temple of Ollyantaytambo. This place looks a lot like Sacsayhuaman. It has the same use of andesite blocks. A difference is the backside of the location. Here, rose granite was used to construct a strange looking megalithic wall. Take a look at the flat stones in between. This temple is situated on a steep slope of a valley. Third, we have Machu Pichu, the most well-known but technologically the least impressive of the 3. There are some very interesting feats here though. And there are clearly different styles of construction here. Let's see what a closer inspection will reveal. Machu Picchu is at an elevation of 2,400 meters and is built upon a mountain ridge. In Egypt, we find megalithic constructions that are more well known. First, we have the Osirion, not as well known as the other temples in Egypt, but nevertheless a very impressive engineering feat. It is built with granite blocks that weigh up to 100 tons. This is a megalithic temple. The temple is 10 meters below ground level. The groundwater is flooding the temple. Second, we have the giant obelisk at the quarry of Aswan in Egypt. Aswan was the quarry for most of the granite archaeological structures there are to be found in Egypt. Blocks were quarried here for projects hundreds of miles away. In the quarry we can still find an unfinished obelisk that weighs approximately 1,200 tons. This is the largest of its kind ever found. Third, we have the pyramids of Giza. These are the most well-known ancient megalithic buildings in the world. For this part of the research, I will focus on the characteristics of the casing stones of 2 of the pyramids. Both the pyramids of Khafre and Menkaure have casing stones made out of megalithic tight-fitting red and black granite stones. And fourth here, we have the Valley Temple. Again, a temple that is built with megalithic granite stones. Here we see both black and red granite. The temple has surprising few hieroglyphs. The same can be said about the Osirion. Both temples are poorly decorated according to Egyptian standards. These 7 structures we looked at have characteristics that are the same. The first thing that we detect are walls of megalithic polygonal multiton blocks that fit together almost perfectly. So as here at the Osirion. Also the casing stones of the pyramids and the Valley Temple have this type of construction. It can also be seen in Peru at Sacsayhuaman, at the Sun Temple at Ollyantaytambo, and it is to be seen at Machu Picchu. It looks a lot like the Valley Temple in Egypt here. It also almost looks like the stone was soft at one time, only this is a conclusion I am not allowed to make yet, of course. This similarity is by far not the only characteristic these structures have in common. The second thing we'll look at is the scooped surface. Here's an example of the scooped type of surface at Sacsayhuaman. Here also are some examples of how the stone seems to be scooped. The same can be seen at the obelisk at the Aswan quarry in Egypt. Here we see clear scoop marks that are the same as the scoop marks we can see in Sacsayhuaman. This is actually how the obelisk was quarried. Here we have an example of the Sun Temple in Peru, where the same type of scoop marks can be seen. Here is an example of the Osirion in Egypt, where we can see the same type of scoop marks. Then we go back to Peru again, to Machu Pichu, and the same type of scoop marks are visible here. And then back to the Sun Temple at Ollyantaytambo in Peru, same type of scoop marks. The second wave of similarities I will show you are the Protusions and depressions. These Protusions and depressions are to be found at the bottom of the polygonal Multiton perfectly fitting blocks. They are shown with a purple circle here. This is at Ollyantaytambo in Peru. Here we see the same Protusions. In Sacsayhuaman we see mostly depressions where the Protusions should be. But there are also some Protusions to be found here at the bottom of the blocks. When we go to Egypt we see the same type of Protusions on the casing stones of the pyramids. And we also see Protusions and depressions at the Osirion in Egypt. Note they are always at the bottom of the stone. And here at Machu Picchu we also see Protusions and depressions at the exact locations. Similarities part 4, Vitrification. This is where the stone has certain layers that are crumbling off that make it seem like the stone was heat treated in some way, creating an exterior layer. This normally does not occur with granite stones. Here are some excellent examples from Peru that show vitrification. At a lot of places the vitrified layer is not visible anymore due to extensive weathering, but due to different properties in this stone, the exterior layer of almost perfect flatness is still visible. The last thing I want to point to is that in some places the stone seems to be cut away. The bulgy stone is left on the left side, and on the right side you see the cutaway stone. This is at the pyramid of Menkaure, but the same thing you can see in the Osirion in Egypt. The interesting thing about this cutting away is that it's done with the same process as the scoop method we discussed earlier. And now the conclusion. The following can be concluded about the observations we just made. There are multiple common characteristics to be found between these awesome ancient megalithic structures. These characteristics are so specific that it undeniably shows that the builders of these structures were connected somehow. There truly is an obvious connection between ancient Egypt and Peru. According to conventional theory, the Inca built the discussed structures in Peru about 500 years ago, and the Egyptians built theirs 4,500 years ago. I've now shown that these previous claims, held by conventional Egyptologists, archaeologists and historians, are false. Egypt and Peru are connected in some way. Maybe the builders migrated to one place or the other, or the builders in both cases originated from some unknown common homeland. I am inclined to go for the second option. More about why my preference goes out to this second option can be seen and heard in the second part of this chapter.